let me turn on the sound on the other things too. Anyway, we're going to be talking about our U.S. education system and how it is failing us miserably. And we'll be doing that in just a second. Just like that, we're here. All right. Again, everyone, welcome to the show. It is that time, 7 p.m. Monday, and it is time for Taboo, where we talk about all sorts of things that the mainstream media just doesn't. And this episode, we are going to be talking about our school system and how poorly our school system does at educating people. And I'm talking mainly about the public school system, which has more than anything become an indoctrination center.
Woohoo.
And for those that don't know, Alex is going to tell us what indoctrination means.
That to
Maybe.
me, thanks for a lot of confidence there. It screams that we are being taught to accept what we are being taught without questioning it as a universal truth.
Well, yeah. I mean, the strictest sense, indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically, meaning they think blindly, like you said, blind faith, if you will, in what you're being taught by teachers or whatever you want to call them. So, like I said, we're going to start by talking a little bit about the public school system and how these have basically become indoctrination centers for all sorts of stuff. And in the research that I've done over the last few weeks on this, to get ready for this show, I've really found that a lot of the systems and a lot of the things that are being taught in schools are very left-winged. And I don't mean just slightly left-bending. I'm talking like horribly left-bending. And by that, I mean the left side of the political spectrum or the liberal side. And like I said, we're going to get into a lot of it. First, though, what I really want to do is show you this video, which, we're getting into America, or America, as you might say. And this video is perfect for kind of outlining a little bit of where everything's going.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say in one sentence or less what... you know what I mean. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Will?
The New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world?
Well, Lewis and Sharon said it. Diversity and opportunity and freedom and freedom.
I'm not letting you go back to the airport without answering the question.
Well, our Constitution is a masterpiece. James Madison was a genius. The Declaration of Independence is, for me, the single greatest piece of American writing. You don't look satisfied.
One's a set of laws and the other's a declaration of war. I want a human moment from you. What about the people? Why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey, and with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl,
Just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day,
there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
Yeah, that'll strike a chord. But it's absolutely true. We don't have the highest positions in all those things, except for defense spending and war. And that's sad. And I blame that mostly on our education system.
And let's not forget that we have to pay to be educated poorly. Not, in fact, even elementary school, parents are paying so far out of their pockets to send their kids to be educated.
Hi.
If you want to gain any kind of post K through 12 education, for whatever it's worth, you're paying $50,000, $100,000 or more for what?
Yeah, and I touch on that here in a little bit too.
I know.
Yeah, and so we've stifled creativity in our schools. We've stifled critical thinking in our schools. And like I mentioned before, it's just become a place of indoctrination into a specific set of beliefs that are dumbing us all down. Schools should be places where kids and even adults learn through problem solving, through critical thinking, creativity, creatively finding answers to questions, not just hoping that whatever you read in a book is going to work for you, because it may not. A lot of schools cherry pick their facts. And we'll get into this with textbooks here in a little bit, but a lot of the cherry picking all fits to this liberalist, brain numbing agenda. And by that, I mean, like, the right-wing capitalists and fascist leaders. Something's off on my thing here today. And fascist leaders this is the narrative, that right-wing capitalists and fascist leaders killed, tortured, and committed violations of human rights. But then they mention nothing about the socialist, Marxist, and communist dictators that have killed hundreds of millions. They're taught, kids in school now are taught that the Muslims and the Nation of Islam, or the religion of Islam specifically, is very peaceful and tolerant, despite the fact that many Islamic empires have been the bloodiest on earth. I'm kind of curious now where all my images are. So, oh yeah, no, they're here. Okay. So this is back when I was saying about the socialist, communist, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Okay. So my presentation's just a little bit off today for some reason. But textbooks, for example, we're going to come back to this. Textbooks have been rewritten. Most of the textbook is complete garbage being fed to the children to promote the leftist agenda. And it's in an effort to keep the younger generation generally uninformed about the world, history, policy, politics, and life. Because libertarianism thrives on that ignorance and misinformation.
I think all agendas do, honestly. You preach what you want people to agree with and either thrash or completely eliminate what you don't want them to even remotely think about, and all of a sudden you've got a cult following.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. So I'm just out of sorts today. But many times, textbooks, etc., are actually forgetting the fact, and I'm talking like when we look at Civil War type stuff, that the North was Republican. Or that this guy, Frederick Douglass, an incredible black statesman and writer who I personally have a huge admiration for, he was Republican. Most of the South and those that wanted to keep slavery were Democrats. Now, this is age-old, Democrats versus Republican, that kind of stuff. But this is becoming the agenda and the narrative that is being taught to our kids in school. Textbooks also fail to recognize that periods when the United States was most prosperous was when our policies were the most capitalistic and conservative, like during Reagan's years. There are never any mentions of the incredible foreign policy or civil rights advocacy by, for example, Richard Nixon, who was also a Republican, because, again, that doesn't fit the agenda. And they like to present that every Republican president seemed like a more warmongering racist, and it's facts like these that the textbooks choose to omit. Omitting these facts can paint a very different picture of history, policy, cultural, and the real workings of our economic system.
Yes, indeed. And it just, again, the whole agenda thing drives me absolutely nuts. It's childish in my mind. It's very immature. Yeah, it's doing one thing again. It's just very childish, and people need to grow up. I'm sorry.
And, I want to include any and everybody listening. If you have anything to say, by all means, give us a call, 970-999-5176. You can also message us on Skype or even call us on Skype, and that Skype name is the Arrow Radio, or even talk in the chat rooms. We will definitely get to your comments and questions. So I was also looking at this, and wearing politicized t-shirts on campus. Now I'm talking any campus, be it college or even middle school, has become more common to see with t-shirts like this, like the future is female. What do we got? Black Lives Matter, and like even gay pride. And these are being worn by not only the students, but the staff. However, when somebody ends up wearing the Confederate flag, they get kicked out of school. And I have one specific thing of this that I'll get into in just a second. But I do want to say, firstly, I believe that this is completely inappropriate for any staff member at a school to wear any piece of clothing, have posters, stickers, or any other item that contains any kind of political message. Again, that's all ceding to a political. Hey, Dee.
But wait a second. I thought the one reason the lady gave in that video for why America is such a great country is diversity. So,
And I'm not saying diversity is bad.
No.
By any means, but politicizing an environment that is used for education, and it should be education on both sides, not just one particular agenda.
Well, where I was going is that diversity suggests inclusion of all kinds, and here we have the gay pride, the future's female, all these very positive messages in theory. And then the second somebody decides they want to wear something that offends somebody, aka the Confederate flag, anything, then they're automatically excluded, they're frowned upon, they're
called
bullied.
a Nazi, called a racist, and that's the hate agenda. Yeah.
And that's not diversity at all.
Exactly. Now, one particular student said, and I quote, "I witnessed a kid get kicked out of school for wearing a shirt with the Confederate flag on it. It's a huge double standard because they let people wear BLM or Black Lives Matters shirts and anti-gun shirts every day." And that's just ridiculous. I remember when I was in high school, every truck that every kid had in the parking lot had a gun rack in it, and usually a loaded gun. But we didn't have, shootings at school or anything like that. Now, in this particular case, I don't need to point out what the double standard is, but it's absolutely unacceptable to allow kids to wear any attire that promotes one political view and not the other. I'm not saying it has to be the same shirt, like a front and back. That'd be kind of cool, but that'd be something I'd do. But it's just ridiculous when you see that kind of thing and somebody gets kicked out for wearing a shirt with something that somebody on the left feels upset about.
Definitely. I again, and I'm probably going to repeat myself so many times today, but it's childish, immature, and ultimately to me it just screams crybaby.
Yeah, I was going to put on some videos about AOC and her incredibly stupidity, but I decided not to in this particular one. We might do that in a political one later, but I tend to not want to talk about politics because it really pisses me off. But other problems in political school, yeah, public school, yeah, no kidding. But other problems in public schools are the un-Americanism that is going on. For example, the removal of the American flag, the Pledge of Allegiance have both been ruined and taken out of school. And everything I was reading on this stems to be because it takes too long. It takes approximately 10 seconds to recite the pledge. Maybe 20 if you have everyone stand up and put their hand on their heart, right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, wait, but weren't they trying to take out the under God part too?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was actually added in, I don't remember exactly when, but that was actually added to the pledge. So even still, even without the God thing, which, okay, whatever. But the Pledge of Allegiance isn't just something, that you willy-nilly just say. You know what I mean? It's basically you're pledging yourself, whether they, I should have found that video. There was a great video I saw with, what was his name? He was a comedian in the 30s and 40s. Red something or other. Red Skelton, that's him. And he was explaining the pledge. If I can find that, I'll definitely throw that in here before we're done. But yeah, I mean, taking that out, you're basically telling people that it's okay to A, not say it, and B, to not give a shit about America. Right?
And then
You're in America. Give a shit about it. Also, teaching about the problems in America and not the good things that America has done for the world or even in our country,
Well, that's mass media for you in general.
Exactly. And again, it's the entire leftist agenda. There's nothing else I can say about that. It's just the leftist agenda. There's also the issue with the blatant abuse of their position as teachers. For example, illegal immigration is a subject that teachers love to talk about, despite it not being part of the curriculum. One particular instance, a Spanish teacher who's an immigrant gives lectures about the traumas of illegal immigration, or rather the traumas that an illegal immigrant family, God, I can't talk, faces when crossing the border. He tells stories of illegal immigrants and their strife and hardship. Now, while that's a human rights thing, sure. But that's why there's legal ways to enter the country. Legal, illegal. What is the difference? A Democrat. Don't get me wrong. I don't think all Democrats are idiots by any means, and I think some of their ideas are okay. But this is just getting out of hand, people. So in this particular case, this same teacher is telling his students to protect criminals by refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement agencies like ICE if they ever came in and asked questions, telling them not to talk to these agents or refuse to talk to these agents, even going so far as to say, throw your IDs in the trash so they don't know who anybody is, and move seats so they can't tell by the seating chart.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Let's just promote criminal activity.
Exactly. Why not start teaching everybody how to be drug dealers? Now, many teachers also will routinely, God, I can't talk, criticize Trump despite it having nothing to do with the class or content. And even classes such as current issues or current events will often turn into an hour of the teacher making crude and abhorrent statements and remarks about Trump and his policies. You may not like the president, but apparently somebody did because he was elected. Therefore, you should support them. I did not like Obama. Didn't like him at all. Did I support him? Mostly. I mean, I'd call it out if something was stupid, like Obamacare. That was probably the dumbest thing ever. But, I'm not a policymaker.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Trump is all for giving knowledge back to the people. He's done quite a few declassification projects, EOs, And I'm pretty sure that's not something the left side's too thrilled about either.
Well, no, they don't want people educated. They want them sitting in front of their TVs watching stupid things. Thanks for the follow, Smart, or One Smart Cookie. They want people sitting in front of their TV watching the Kardashians. You know, I mean, completely, totally mindless shit on television these days. I mean, you know, I'm not saying television's been great in my lifetime, but I remember MTV when they actually played music.
I remember cartoons when they were still violent, and yeah, we
Looney Tunes.
We knew not to do that shit. We knew it was a freaking show, and you know what? They actually taught morals too.
I have never strapped a rocket to my back and sit on skates. Today, Jesus Christ, they watch that shit and they eat Tide Pods. I mean, how dumb do you have to be? So, you know, sorry, I got off track there. You know, many English teachers now are using classroom and discussion times. I don't know what you just sent me, but thank you. Many English teachers will use the class discussion time and assigned readings to enlighten students about their social issues that they perceive. Now, these social issues, and this is one of many, right? But like a class discussion on how the woman was portrayed in the novel and how their negative portrayal is indicative of a patriarchal society that used to champion women at the expense of men. And now what do we have? We have the complete opposite. It's all this leftist agenda to try to keep us divided. Because if we're divided, we can't attack the real issues. If I'm too busy about the black man standing next to me and the Muslim on the other side of me, I'm not looking forward to see, oh, hey, this guy's being a manipulative prick. But again, this is all in our schools. And this is what they're teaching our kids. Ridiculous.
And then it results in a ton of bullying and hurt feelings.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I've seen, men are pussies and women are the superior gender is the new narrative, right? But I've seen, like you were saying, Alex, the complete bullying thing. If you don't agree, you're not only bullied by the students, you're bullied by the fucking teacher.
And I keep seeing all these comments. There was a thing on Facebook I was looking at the other day that said, parents, if your kids are being bullied, you need to bring it up to the teachers. The teachers and the administrative staff don't fucking care. They see it happening. I was bullied all throughout school, and it was mainly because I actually went to school to learn. And regardless, it was brought up by my parents, by me so many times. I was told to toughen up. Kids will be kids. It's just a phase. And nothing was actually ever done to stop it. And the one time I had to physically stand up for myself, I was the one that got in trouble.
Well, and nowadays, right, you're supposed to go tell the teacher if somebody's bullying you. Yeah, they don't teach problem solving. Thank you, One Smart Cookie. That is exactly what I'm fucking saying. And we get into that a little bit. So hold on. But you're supposed to go tell your teacher, right? You tell the teacher, well, so-and-so called me a Nazi for not agreeing with whatever. Well, then maybe you should change your mind. What? Why the fuck should I change my mind? You want to see Nazi motherfucker? I'll burn this place down. You know, and kids are pussified. You can't use, teachers don't use red pens anymore. Why? Because it hurts people's feelings when they fail.
There we go back to the participation.
I'm sorry, hold on. Bet I get a medal because I participated. I'm okay now. What kind of shit is this? When I was in school, man, if I failed, that was the one letter on the planet that I was most afraid of was a fucking F. Especially when it's circled.
Yeah, especially when you have to take it home to your parents to get signed, and then you know you're gonna get
and you know your
whooped.
ass is gonna get beat, right? But you can't do that now either. You try to spank your kid, fuck, you're going to jail. Why? You hit your kid, that's assault. No, I discipline my kid, that's parenting. Yeah. No dodgeball or tag anymore. Yeah. Because self-esteem is affected and being referred to as it. That's awesome.
And a few years ago, I think in Littleton, it might have been two 6-year-olds got tased for playing cops and robbers on the playground because they pointed their fingers at each other with their thumbs up like they were guns and making pew 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 sounds. And the freaking police tased them. 6-year-olds.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, but that's infuriating.
You know, in my day, we had cap guns. We had little sparking guns. We had all sorts of things that looked like guns. Some of them sounded like guns. But even then, cops weren't dumb enough to like shoot you. You know? And you weren't going to upset somebody if you shot your finger at them or even a fucking rubber band. Nowadays, if you were, I shit you not, if you were to point your finger with a rubber band on it and go pew, like that, and the rubber band fires and hits somebody and they're offended by it, you're going to go to jail as a goddamn terrorist.
So stupid. Like, I'm laughing right now to prevent myself from getting mad, but hey.
it's completely ridiculous, yes. So study hall, and this was my next point, right? Which is a period, or supposed to be a period, where you sit down and you do homework or whatever, right? You know, I never used study hall. I had several study halls. I never used them for homework, but, you know, it was mainly like sitting there talking to your friends really quietly so that the teacher didn't know and you didn't get in trouble, right? But now it's being used as a time to give students necessary information, which usually amounts to liberal propaganda. And in today's society where we're all techno and blah, 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 a lot of schools have televisions in them.
Of course they do.
I'll get to that in just a second, Stump. Stump Live asked me, what party are you and what candidate do you support? I'll get to that in just a second. But I've seen a number of instances where people are like the teacher will have CNN or MSNBC or something like that on. And again, that all promotes, and everybody knows this, right? CNN is like the liberal puppet, just like the Washington Post.
So is MSNBC. I think Fox is the only one that even remotely.
I don't know. Fox is skewed the other side too. So I think, you know, yeah. National news, any kind of mass media kind of news is worthless anymore. But so Stump, what party are you and what candidate do you support? That's a really good question. As far as party, I'm not. I am nonpartisan completely. When I look at candidates, yeah, Fox is run by liberal Murdoch sons. Yep.
Oh, wow.
So when I look at a candidate, I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat or nonpartisan or Tea Party or however many they are. I look at it whether they're intelligent and whether I think that they can do the job. For example, this last election, I was pro-Trump, and I'll tell you why. I don't like Trump as a person. I think he's a pig. I think, yeah, it sounds like a great, like, you know, endorsement here, right? I think he's a pig. I think he's borderline illiterate. He certainly can't talk for shit, right?
Yeah, those speeches without
because
teleprompter.
This is going to be great. This is going to be great. I'm telling you, it's going to be big. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. And that's about all you get out of Trump. But the man is a businessman. And he has built his business throughout his whole life. I mean, all businesses are shady fuckers to begin with, but he's a businessman. And I have since actually right after Reagan thought that the country, I never understood how a country can be so in debt that we're not like living in tin shacks and eating dog feces. Okay. I don't understand how we can have that kind of debt. And to who, I don't know either, but
the Iron Bank.
Yeah. But still be quote unquote profitable. So when I supported Trump, I didn't support him as a person, you know, like his first, 2 years of presidency was all like who he's sleeping with and all this stuff. And really, I don't care. I didn't care when Clinton was getting blowjobs by Monica Lewinsky. I don't care who you fuck. I care if you can do the job. And in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, feel free to disagree, but I think Trump is doing a good job. Now, could it be that it's the initial, like I've seen on the news where its initial numbers were great, but now they're kind of tearing off and blah, blah, blah. But I think he's doing a great job as a president. And unless one of the Democrats or whoever is running against him in 2020 literally blows me out of the water with what they have to say. And I mean, you can tell when these guys are lying, right? You look at them. Okay, we're getting way into politics now. Aren't we? You look at them and, if they can't even maintain eye contact with the fucking camera, they're probably full of shit. And, a lot of them are like looking around. I watched that one debate the other night and it kind of made me laugh because there was nobody who had a fucking clue, and they were always looking around, and then they'd try the whole, he said, she said crap, and it just doesn't really fly. But let's get out of politics because that's a whole nother thing. And I think we just wasted about 10 minutes on that, but that's how I choose. I choose by who I think can get the job done based on facts. Now, generally I do not like politicians, and I'll have to, okay, one more thing. I have to say this because if I were ever to become president, right, the first 3 things I would do the day I took oath. Number 1, I am going to declare martial law. Number 2, I am going to round up every politician and every lawyer and execute them publicly. And then number 3 is I'm going to get to work on fixing the rest of the country. Okay. So there's my political agenda. It's the fuck this shit kind of platform. So, hey, if you want me to throw my name in the hat, I'm certainly willing to do that. So back to schools, right? I know, it's such a tangent. Back to the school issue.
That was fabulous.
How bad is it really? Seriously, how bad is it?
Apparently bad enough that we get off on political tangents every 2 seconds.
Yeah, well. So this issue is extremely widespread. Okay. Now look at this graphic. This is from Verdant Labs, and it found that 79% of teachers are Democrats. That means that nearly 4/5 of teachers have a liberal or left-leaning views. When we consider that most teachers believe it's their job to educate students about the morality and world events, the massive amount of liberal bias and indoctrination into the school comes as no surprise.
Not particularly.
4/5. It's 79 Democrats to every 21 Republican type teachers. And I use Democrats and Republicans for left and right, so pardon me. There was a kid I was talking to. So some of you don't know what I do, but I work with people, lots and lots of people. And I was talking to one kid, and he wanted to start a club at his school that was basically for young Republicans or young conservatives, however you want to say that. He could not find somebody in his particular school. In order to have an after school club, you have to have a teacher sponsor. And he could not, for the life of him, find any teacher at that school that would be willing to sponsor that club, even though he said that there were many left-wing type,
Right-wing?
or right-wing type. No, left-wing. I was right the first time. Don't correct me, woman. He couldn't find anyone who wasn't a left wing. That's what I'm trying to say. Nobody would sponsor his club. Stump says, my history book bashed Trump and quoted him calling all Mexicans bad hombres, and describes him as a casino owner who exploits women, but somehow was magically elected to office. Are you serious, Stump? If you are, I want a copy of that. That would be awesome. And you can always like scan it and send it to show it at taboo.media. That'd be awesome. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And history books are being rewritten like we were talking about.
And I'm pretty sure that is the leftist agenda for
Oh
saying
my God.
The whole stance on the illegal immigration. Yeah, he wants people to enter the country legally. So all of a sudden he's so racist because he wants to do things by the letter of the law.
Yeah. And I mean, if you knew Trump or even ever saw Trump prior to being elected president, the guy's hanging out with boxing stars. He's, black, white, Mexican, whatever. He's not a racist. He wants people here legally. And so do I. And the issue between, okay, we're getting political again. Stop this. The reason is between the left and right, you have illegal and legal apparently mean nothing. The concept is simple. If you're doing something illegal, it's bad. Thus, illegal immigration is bad. There is legal immigration, and you can do that. And a lot of great people do that. And that's fine. That's legal. But, if you're anyway. All right. We're going through. So a lot of teachers use excuses like political correctness, teaching tolerance, protecting the feelings. Whoops, I don't want to hit this yet. Protecting the feelings of other students in order to propagate their own views and ideas. Now, again, Alex, what does indoctrination mean?
The process of teaching people or many people to accept their views without questioning them.
A set of views or beliefs, yeah.
And that's my thing. I mean, you're teaching them your way. You're teaching them all these, and you're preaching human rights. That's my thing. You're preaching human rights. You're preaching tolerance. You're preaching political correctness, which I'm sorry, that's just teaching them to be super emotional and pussies. But the thing is, you're teaching all this tolerance and political correctness and human rights, but in the same time that you're doing exactly that, you are denying them one of the most basic, fundamental human rights of education.
Oh, I was going to say intelligence, but yeah.
Like, we're teaching you guys to respect human rights, but we're not respecting yours because we're brainwashing you.
Yeah. Well, again, they've stifled the creativity. They've stifled critical thinking. And I mean, anymore in school, you regurgitate. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, but like I said, this is the only one word that you can use to describe it, and that's indoctrination. They're indoctrinating our youth to be extremely left-sided. Okay. So now my next question is, don't believe us? Check this shit out, right? This was a survey given to middle school students, 8th graders to be specific, to see if they were privileged. Privileged. If they checked a box, it meant they're privileged. Do you want me to read some of these? This is awesome, right? The first one. I am white. Whoops. Guess I'm privileged.
Yeah, me too.
Seriously?
Oh, just because I'm fighting for meals every day because I'm living on the street. Yeah, I'm white, so I'm privileged. Yeah, no.
I am white. Therefore, I'm privileged. Hang on, I'm trying to pull up a better picture so I can actually read all of them.
Yeah, tell that to all the white homeless people that are struggling for food, struggling for any kind of thing.
That's just asinine. I am white. Really? Really? Go fuck yourself. Anyway, okay, so let's look at some of these here, right? And I want to know how many of you, based on this, are privileged. I have never been discriminated against because of my skin color. Well, isn't that pretty much basically kind of saying the same thing. But I can say I can't check this one.
Nor can I.
I'm white, therefore I can't do, whatever this is. Oh, I couldn't play basketball, which is mainly true, but yeah. I have never been the only person of my race in a room.
Wrong. I can't check that one.
Yeah, I can't check that one either. I went to this Mexican restaurant once. Not a white person to be found. I have never been mocked for my accent.
I can't even check that one. Because I lived in the South after growing up in the Midwest, and all of a sudden I have an accent because it's not Southern.
Oh, wow. Stump says he goes to a military school. Wow, and they put that in military school history books? Shit. He goes to a military school, and they have haircut codes with that are supposed to be at certain lengths, but they let the black kids keep their dreads. That's really bizarre. I have never been told that I'm attractive for my race. I don't know. I've been told I've been pretty fly for a white guy. Does that count? Wait, no, that's a song. I have never experienced negativity because of my race. I have never been called a racial slur. I've never been told that I sound white. I mean, and this was given to 8th graders, people.
So far, I can only check that first one.
A stranger never asked to touch my hair or if it's real. These are 8th graders. Who the fuck's going to go up to an 8th grader? Oh, is your hair real?
Let me touch this. What kind of texture is it?
I've never... I am heterosexual. Well, I'm fucked. I never doubted my parents' acceptance of my sexuality. Well, I've never doubted my parents' acceptance, but, I have never been called a derogatory term for a homosexual. I can't check that. I've been called a fag before, which is technically a cigarette if you go by strict definitions, but that's another thing. I have never tried to hide my sexuality. Hell no, I haven't tried to hide my sexuality. I'm always comfortable demonstrating PDA with people I like. Well, unless they don't like me as much, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with it. I have never been ostracized or excluded because of my religious beliefs. I'm a man. Oh, double whammy. I'm a man and I'm white, so I'm like super privileged.
And you're heterosexual.
What is this privilege we're talking about? I don't get like extra food stamps or anything like that because I'm privileged, do I?
You're a man, you're straight, and you're white. Ooh, super privileged.
I know. What's the privilege I get? I don't get it. I feel comfortable in the gender I was born in, except for that brief stint where I used to be, Bobby, the little girl when I was little. My sister used to dress me up. It was uncomfortable. But anyway, I have never felt unsafe because of my gender. I have never been denied an opportunity because of my gender. See, this is all bullshit. The whole gender thing too. Oh my God, that drives me absolutely nuts. And now you got this guy who's a transgendered female, right? And he enters a boxing ring, an MMA fight, and he's fighting other women, and he hits said woman and cracks her skull. That's bullshit. If you were born a man, I don't care if you got rid of your dick or not, you're still a man. Anyway, let me say this. I have nothing at all against homosexuals. Some of my best friends are homosexual. I have no problem with transgendered or transvestites or anything like that. Some of my best friends are those. That sounded wrong, but whatever. You get the idea. I have no problem against any ethnicity. And I am not a racist. You want to call me one? I'll show you one. But I am not. Okay.
I don't have problem with people based on their appearance or any way they feel. My biggest issue is stupid. So if you're gonna bring me stupid, I can show you stupid. But
I'm just reading some of these questions and they get worse.
But yeah, no, I'm not racist. I'm not gonna discriminate you just as soon as I see you. But if you want to bring the stupid, I can bring the stupid.
Bring it on, baby. So I'm going to hit these because these really bother me. My family and I have never lived below the poverty line.
Well, that doesn't qualify many people because
No one in my family has student loans.
Yeah, the student loans are always fun.
I have never gone to bed hungry.
I went to bed hungry. It was because I didn't like what was cooked, and Mom told me you're not eating them. Oh, wait.
I have never been homeless. My parents pay some of my bills. Now, what 8-year-old is not going to check that one? Unless you have an 8-year-old, then you're making them pay fucking rent.
Wait, what?
My parents pay some or all of my bills. If you check that, you're privileged. And again, this is going to 8-year-olds.
What 8-year-old has a bill? Seriously.
My question. Are people like making their kids pay their cell bill? I think I probably would, but I mean, it's even still, you're paying all or most of their bills. This is stupid. I don't rely on public transportation. I buy new clothes at least once a month. I have never felt poor. I have,
I got $20 a month allowance. I had to buy what I wanted. I got what I needed, but I had to buy what I wanted, so. And I didn't get that.
I have never taken medication for my mental health.
Can't check that one.
I have been told I'm overweight or too skinny. I mean, why? Why would you even do this to an 8-year-old? I don't get it. Anyway.
2nd grade. That is really freaking retarded.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about a school type other than public schools. We'll kind of, it's a comparison thing, really. I don't know how familiar you are of the Montessori schools.
Not particularly, but I did read your comparison chart, but I'm really interested.
Michelle says her youngest 2 and I have been homeless. We've gone to bed hungry. Well, Michelle, welcome to Privileged. I don't get it. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with Montessori schools. Do you know anything about them?
Not particularly, other than they're catered.
Oh, we got the unhappy student there. I must have missed something. Anyway, so Montessori schools are a school type. It's usually private schools. I don't think I've ever seen a public Montessori school, which is probably for the best because I don't know what they'd teach them. But where you learn by doing, not regurgitating and vomiting up facts or books. Okay, so for example, in a Montessori school, it's a prepared environment. The classrooms are prepared based on the individual student. And it's also active learning, which is hands-on active learning, letting students learn on their own, creative thinking, that kind of thing.
That's how I always seem to learn best. You tell me something, it goes one ear, in one ear and out the other. If I don't do it, it doesn't stick.
Well, in public schools, you have the environment where it's teacher-centered lessons and activities. The teacher decides everything. Well, today we're going to do this. Today we're going to do this. We're going to talk about this. No, we're not talking about that today. We're talking about this. It's a very passive learning experience.
But
meaning, yeah. Well, it means basically that lessons are orally delivered, orated, vomited, whatever you want to call it, by the teachers to the students who memorize for what? A test. Yay, tests.
Standardized tests. The ACT, the SAT, any kind of test.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all, your progress is, well, we'll get into that in a minute. So with Montessori schools, the students work on lessons as long as it takes. It could take them 10 minutes. It could take them 2 hours. It could take them 2 weeks, whatever. They're working on that lesson on their own. Okay. The teachers are viewed as guides and consultants rather than, I don't know, preachers at a pulpit, I guess.
Dictators.
Yeah. Whereas in public schools here, the limitations are mandated by these arbitrary schedules. Arbitrary, I don't even know if that's a word, but arbitrary schedules. Right? Ring. Oh, got to go to next class. Math time. Ring. Oh, social studies. Ring. You know. Teachers there deliver the same lessons at the same pace in the same order for everybody.
And on top of that, they're changing the curriculum so much that when kids go home, their parents can't even help them. Like this stupid Common Core crap that's like, you add this to
I
get
think they got rid of Common Core, though.
Oh, God, I hope so. But I remember my cousin was posting at one point on Facebook, so-and-so came home and asked me for help with her math homework, and I didn't understand a bloody piece of it because that's not how we were taught.
Well, and I mean, it's not just how you're taught. I mean, Common Core is retarded. Just pointing it out there. In Montessori schools, you don't have grades as such. It's mainly broken up by the age group, right? 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, and 15 to 18 are the typical ones for Montessori schools. Also, the curricula expands in response to the student's needs. So even if, let's say you start the day, everybody gets whatever done, you expand, you go into the next lesson, you go into something higher about that. It's not just what I'm about to say here, predetermined without regard to the student's needs. And sorry about this really upset looking child. Also, the grade levels are not flexible in public schools. It's defined by your chronological age within that 12-month period.
Unless, of course, you get failed and have to go back.
Or, in my case, I was advanced and skipped 2 grades, but that's beside the point. Also, well, this was a wash because those are supposed to be happy kids. In Montessori schools, esteem is an understanding. Whereas, again, and this is where the upset person is, self-esteem comes from all those external judgments and validations.
It feels to me like the Montessori schools are like, well, how would you do this? How would you,
Exactly. Well, that's how it is.
Then,
it breeds that creative thinking process. It doesn't, like younger students are more craft-based. Right? They make crafts and things like that to learn how to creatively create things rather than, today we're going to make a macaroni and cheese drawing. And I want you all to do your houses. Right? That's public schools. They exchange that creativity for conformity and uniformity. Uniformity. And that's what sucks. So if you know of or have one nearby, I highly recommend helping to support those Montessori schools because they actually teach rather than
brainwash.
I don't even know what you can call public schools anymore, really.
Brainwashing is what I would call it.
Yeah, pretty much. So what about higher education? There is, and I hate it when I forget to hit certain things on slides, but there is an enormous emphasis on getting a college degree. And why is that?
Because they want money in the government?
They want money. They being the people that, make you pay for school, right? So we're going to go through a couple of things about college degrees, and then we'll hit non-college degrees. Okay? There is a huge overhype of promises of earnings from college.
So true.
Everybody who, and you're always told, especially that senior year, right? You're told, we got to get you ready for college. You need to do your SATs, your ACTs, all these tests, so you can get into a good school. And then when you get into that good school, you're going to get this great degree and you're going to make lots of money and you're never going to have a problem again, right?
Bullshit. I have a bachelor's and it's never enough. They want the master's or the PhD or the bachelor's and 10 years of experience. And how the fuck am I supposed to get 10 years of experience if
nobody will hire you?
To me?
Yep. exactly. So there's an overhype of those promised earnings, right? The only thing, the absolute only thing that a college degree promises is that you get a degree.
You get a piece of paper for $100,000.
You also have a body of knowledge, don't get me wrong, but it may or may not be useful in your life. What else do you get? Debt. According to a 2018 report by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, as many as 44.7 million Americans have student loan debt.
Raising my hand right here. Woohoo!
And that's all reported by the Federal Reserve Bank, of course, the Fed, which it has nothing to do with the Fed rule system at all. The total amount of student loan debt, get this, as of 2018 is $1.47 trillion.
Lovely.
That's a bit of cash. And that's also more than all credit cards and auto loans combined.
Woohoo. But wait a second. Don't a lot of countries in Europe offer free higher education?
They do, but I have some problems with all of this, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, and again, many students get these loans, right out of high school. They're thinking, oh, I can get this loan. I'll be able to pay it back once I graduate in 4 years, and it won't be a problem, right? Yeah. So the other thing is there's an abundance of online schools now. And so the bigger thing is that many people think that degree that you get from an online school is as good, if not better, than those from traditional or in-class type schools. And many employers still view those online degrees as inferior. And especially when you have, let's say, a pool of 3 or 4 people that you're considering for this position, and these 3 have an online education where this one went to Brown or, wherever, a traditional school, they're more than likely to pick that traditional school candidate.
Again, with the diversity here.
Ain't that a bit fucked up? So the other thing about your lovely college degree, especially when you get one in, underwater basket weaving or something along those lines, is that employment in your field is not guaranteed. Ever. You have an electrical engineering degree. Big whoop. Welcome to McDonald's. Just because you have that degree in something doesn't mean that you're going to end up in that kind of career.
Even if you get a degree that is versatile, mine is in business management. You'd think that, that would qualify me for pretty much any business manager position.
And that's just it, right? There's business management and psychology are 2 of the biggest ones. So your pool of potential candidates out there is enormous.
Yeah, it is.
So, and even when you take physics, for example, there's no guarantee that you're going to get hired on by a university or any kind of think tank. Again, welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you today?
She mentioned that word there, think. Are we thinking in schools anymore?
Well, exactly. But there's that emphasis ever since you're little, right? Well, you got to get good grades so you can get to a good college. You got to get into a good college so you can get a good job. There are so many doctors and lawyers out there. It's ridiculous. There's not a shortage. We're not going to run out for a very long time. So, I know some doctors and some lawyers take forever to pass their MCATs or their bar or whatever. And, that's all fine and good. Maybe there'll be a job open for them when they do. So again, welcome to Starbucks. How can I help you today? So let's talk about the other side of that perspective, right? What if you don't have a college degree? Well, you have no initial debt going into anything.
That's always nice.
So, think of like farmers, think of, those kind of things. You know, kids that graduate high school and they're like, fuck that, I'm going to stay a farmer. Right? I mean, even that's getting harder and harder now because farms are being more and more bought by companies, which is supposed to be illegal, but isn't. Anyway, so you have no initial debt. It's very much a skill versus degree kind of knowledge, right? You develop skills rather than book knowledge. You're taught by doing, not reading and supposition.
Ooh, that goes back to that Montessori school system there.
Exactly. That's exactly what it goes to. Or, you know, you get out of school and you take on a journeyman or apprenticeship with like an electrician or something like that. But here's the bigger question. How many jobs pay well without some sort of college ID or college degree?
And another thing that bothers me about that whole, I've got a degree now, I'm working at McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever.
Philosophy is a great one for that, yeah.
Is the people, the customers that come in and they say to you, you should go to college so you can get a better job so you're not working this shitstorm year after year. Hello, I've got one, thanks. You want to hire me?
Yep. And again, that's social ignorance, whatever. You know, just because somebody's working at, you know, a Domino's Pizza delivering food doesn't mean that they don't have a degree. It just means that there's nothing worth working for. So I want to get into some higher paying jobs that don't require any kind of degree. Some of them do require some technical training, but really with technical training, you're talking 6 to 8 months, maybe to a year. And that's usually in some sort of apprenticeship type program, right? What do we got? We got truck drivers. Not a very glamorous job at all, is it?
Has its perks.
How much do you think truck drivers make?
More than I do. My cousin's a truck driver, and he said in 2 years he's completely debt free. So it's got to be up there.
Yeah.
Maybe $100,000, maybe more. That's just a guess.
The median, right? The median is right at 80,000.
Woohoo! I'd love to make
There's
that.
some higher, some lower, but right about 80,000. And I'm pretty sure that means over the road. That's like overnight type trucking, but probably can't get that locally, would be my guess.
Hey, they get to see the country.
What about elevator installers or elevator repairman?
Sounds like it could be dangerous, so I'm going to say it's a little up there too.
Pretty close. It's, you know, the median again. And think about this. How many buildings do we have with elevators in them? A lot.
Almost all of them, because people are lazy and don't want to take the stairs.
Well, there is that too. The median on this is about $79,000 a year.
I'll take it.
Something that you may or may not know even what it is. What about a Boilermaker?
Ooh.
Do we even use boilers anymore? Another name for this could be a welding or a welding. But Boilermakers make right around $62,000 a year. And really the biggest thing that they need to have is a technical type mind, problem solving, similar to a mechanic or something like that, and the ability to weld. Which you can take a class at any kind of, you know, community college or anything like that in welding, learn how to weld, you do it well. I think there was a thing I saw a long time ago about a welder who went to a job interview, and it said, you know, starting pay is between like 30 or 40,000 and 116,000, right, a year. And so one of the tests was to make a particular set of welds, and he did 2 sets. And the interviewer asked, why did you do this twice? And why does one look like crap and the other one looks really good? He's like, that's the difference between 30, 40,000 and 70, 80,000.
Nice.
You know, you get what you pay for. You want me to do a good job? Pay me better. And then we also have plumbers.
And what I like about these jobs is none of them are glamorous, and a lot of them can even be dangerous. So if you learn how to do this in your community college, is you're not going to have a huge pool of competition when you go to find a job.
Well, and I mean, there's a lot of plumbers out there, don't get me wrong, but plumbing is something that you can learn on the job. You know, again, these are all jobs that you can apprentice with. You become a master, a journeyman, whatever, and you make more and more money. Now, for a plumber, the median is between $52,000 and $90,000 a year. Makes you think you're in the wrong field, doesn't it?
Just a little bit.
What about web designers, web developers?
Yeah, that's what my associate's in, and yeah, that kind of went over my head, but didn't realize you could do it without a degree.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Most of the best ones don't have a degree. I can tell you that personally, but you can make anywhere. Again, you know, you have to have some marketing skills. You have to be able to know how to market yourself. And you, of course, have to have the technical skills, which you can take courses in. But typically, the median for web developers are 62 to about 122,000 a year. What about HVAC technicians?
Ooh.
People that come and repair your heating and electrical and your AC units and all that good stuff.
That like to go out right as the summer comes in.
Well, you know, they don't have a single season. Heating, electrical, and air conditioning, right? They make about 51,000 a year median. So there's those that make more. Obviously, you're going to make more in a higher demand area. Like, you know, AC techs are going to make a shit ton of money in places like California and Las Vegas as a good example. Maybe not so much money in somewhere like Nebraska. But there's all sorts of jobs, and I encourage you to look them up online because they are out there. And they don't, they don't require a degree. So with that being said, that's all I got. I think as a whole, I think our public school system is dumbing our children down. And I do have one particular instance of this. So I was with somebody years ago, and she had a little girl, and the little girl was going into kindergarten, right? Prior to going into kindergarten, she was in a great preschool. They taught her ABCs. They taught her how to start to read, et cetera, et cetera. We put her in public school because, you know, why not? Should be a good thing for kindergarten, you know, whatever.
You'd think.
So about midway through the year, actually it wasn't even midway. It was probably, I don't know. Anyway, so later on, her and I were sitting on the couch, and I was like, how about you read me a story? And she's like, okay. And she couldn't read as well as she did before she started kindergarten. I asked her, you know, wow, what's going on? You're having trouble with a lot of words that you knew before. She's like, yeah, I just haven't used it for a while. It's like, okay, that's fair enough. And the next day I took her to school, and I went up to the teacher. It wasn't midway through yet. That's right. It was maybe a quarter of the way into school, or into the school year. And, you know, I noticed that all they're doing is playing games and watching shit like SpongeBob on the TV. And I'm like, well, what do you teach them? And he's like, well, we don't really do much the first half of the year. I'm like, what?
So what am I paying for?
Well, it's public school, but, you know, taxes, whatever. But I'm like, what do you mean you don't teach them much? Well, they take a skill assessment at the beginning of the year. I was like, okay. And then we don't teach them anything until after the middle of the year, because the way it works, he said, they take that skill assessment in the beginning of the year. They don't do nothing in the middle, and then they take an assessment at the end of the year, which they start teaching them about mid-year. And if they show XYZ improvement, they get XYZ money per student. So really, if you have a shit ton of idiots in your class Now you know why. Because they're not teaching you anything because they want the money. Now, interestingly enough, I remember at the beginning of the school year, we had to buy all of her supplies for the year. You know, we had to have 12 of these, 12 of these, 12 of these, you know, whatever, because those were hers and that's what she would use. So I think within like 2 or 3 weeks, we had found a Montessori school down there and switched her. We were like, you know, fuck this. This is stupid. You know, she's actually gotten dumber from going to public school. Not smarter, dumber. And so we put her in a Montessori school. By the end of the year, not only was she happier, she was learning all sorts of cool things, like she was making pot holders. I mean, I made those when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, sure. But she was making pot holders. She was making little blankets and all this stuff, all this crafty stuff. And she was more critical in her thinking. She had a better understanding of how she was reacting to situations. You know, rather than the emotional outburst, she actually would be like, you know, that really hurts my feelings, or that makes me happy when this happens, and stuff like that. So I am a firm believer in Montessori schools. I highly recommend them. If you have them in your area, by all means, feel free to support them. It is a little bit more expensive, yes, but in my mind, it is completely and totally worth it.
And before we go, I want to ask you something.
42. That's my answer.
By the medical terminology of bipolar disorder, you've known me for a little while now. Would you say I'm bipolar? Yes, I know I'm ADHD. That's another story. But by the medical definition of bipolar disorder, would you in any way say that I am?
No.
Thank you.
However, I have to
Cut in.
add an addendum to that. Since I've known you, you haven't had any kind of depressive issues. And I mean, I've known you for a little over a year now, 2 years, something like
2
that.
2 years-ish.
Yeah. So, but, bipolar disorder can be triggered by situational things too. So even though you may have been diagnosed as bipolar before, there could very have well been environmental factors to that. Just because you're bipolar doesn't mean you're bipolar all the time. There's different levels and different, you know, whatever you want to look at for bipolar disorder.
Okay, fair enough. So my thing is, and I mentioned this earlier, I was bullied because I was the smart one in school. I was always inadvertently, without trying, the teacher's pet. And that always brought me into the wrath of every other student in the school. So that's going to make, I think, any person unhappy. But the fact that they didn't teach me how to deal with it constructively got it to the point where I was frequently unhappy and not wanting to go to school. And about, I want to say I was 10 or 11 at the time, they recommended me to see a psychologist, which led to a psychiatrist, and led to me on all kinds of crap that I'd like to note now. All the commercials say, not for children under the ages of 18, may cause increased suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
But my question is, why are we putting prepubescent children on adult medications because adults are unwilling to deal with the problem at hand?
Yeah, well, and you see this a lot in schools, especially public schools. You know, oh, your kid has behavior issues, you know, whatever. I'm like, what's the behavior issue? Well, she hit this kid who called her ugly. I'm like, good. So what's the issue? You know, I am a firm believer, and if you're going to bully me, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. You're going to stop bullying me, or you're going to keep going home with bloody noses. And if you don't learn that way, then I'll find some other creative ways to destroy your life. But I don't believe in the whole, and we kind of touched on this a little bit ago with earlier, anyway, with the bullying thing, right? If you're different and you don't follow the narrative, then you're bullied by both the students and the teachers. Well, nowadays, if a kid who's being bullied stands up for him, he gets in trouble. Well, you should have gone to the teacher and let them handle it. No. Fuck
I went
that.
to the teacher. They didn't
Fuck
do shit about
that.
it.
That exactly my point. And again, this goes towards the, if you're not following their narrative, they don't care. So, yeah, my big thing is that, teach your kids to stand up for themselves. They don't have to necessarily go beat the shit out of somebody to do that. I remember there was a long time ago, we were at Chuck E. Cheese, we meaning me and my daughter at the time. She was about 8, 9 years old, something like that. And what I would typically do would be, because there's always bigger kids around that take advantage of the littler ones and stuff like that. And she was going to go play video games with her friend and stuff like that. So I'd give her like $1 worth of quarters or tokens at a time. So, number one, so she didn't have a shit ton of them if somebody did take them. And number two, because that way I knew she'd come back for more, rather than just disappear into the Chuck E. Cheese-ness of it all.
Force her to let you check up on her?
Yes, exactly. So I remember one time I gave her and her little friend probably like $5 all at once in tokens. And they went and started playing. About like 10 minutes later, she comes back and she's all upset. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And she's like, that kid, or this bigger kid took my cup of quarters. I was like, which kid? And she's like, that one right there. And she points to him. And I was like, well, you go get him back. She's like, well, what if he hits me? I'm like, hit him. I'm like, I've taught you how to hurt people. You do that if you need to. So she comes back and this guy is following her to our table.
The angry parent?
Yeah. And he's like, your daughter just hit my son. And I was like, well, your fucking piece of shit son stole my daughter's money. I was like, and I suggest you back the fuck off before I hit you.
Nice.
I don't put up with the bullshit. I am not politically correct. I had a very good male black friend of mine years ago. I was working as a bouncer at a strip club. Fun times. But I was working at a bouncer there at the strip club. And this black guy comes in with a bunch of his friends, and he's got his pants sagging down to about his ankles, and he's got his hat on backwards, and just all this stupid, typical wannabe gang stuff, right?
So cool.
And the guy I'm talking about, my friend, he goes, look, motherfucker, pull your goddamn pants up and quit acting like a complete and total nigger. And I looked at him, I was like, whoa, damn. And he's like, what? I'm like, well, I've just, didn't think that was cool. He's like, let me tell you something. He's like, there are black men in this world and there are niggers. There are white men in this world and there are wiggers. He's like, it's all about attitude, man. He's like, they come up like that. That's a nigger right there. He's like, if they're respectful, kind, et cetera, they're a black man. They're a man, and that's the big difference. And he said, the same thing with white men. There are white men who are white, completely, totally white trash. There are wiggers, which is the, black wannabe and stuff like that. So you got to take all that with a grain of salt and see where it's coming from, At any rate, I am going to cut it off because my little D-bod is in here sucking up the crap off the floor. If you can't hear it. At any rate, by all means, give us your thoughts in the comments below or comments in general. We'll be sure to answer them, as well as you can always give us a call, 970-999-5176 or the Arrow Radio on Skype, and we'll be happy to get you or your interests on the show. And then, which brings me to our next thing.
Episode topic.
Thank you. I couldn't remember what I was saying. So in our next episode, we are going to start our instructions and understanding of the law of one. I hope you will be there. We're going to start basically book 1, session 1, and move forward. We'll be doing those more and more. Also, we have set up a Patreon account And I believe it's Patreon/Taboo Media, I think. I want to say. So by all means, we'll be putting more and more stuff on there as well. And then, of course, we're on DLive, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, everywhere. Pretty where anywhere that you can see media. If you have any comments, questions, cute remarks, by all means, let us know. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody for coming in tonight, and you guys have a great evening.